Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. First off, before I get started into this little vlog update, I'd like to apologize for the terrible webcam. That's going to be my next purchase, so bear with me on this one. I'm going to try to get some better lighting as well. And I also apologize for the voice. I am a little bit tired, a little bit exhausted from the last few days being in Vegas and now being back home. So I thought I'd update on you on my trip to Vegas, as it was pretty important in my Magic the Gathering career. I was able to top 8 the PTQ Vegas, which was a huge confidence boost for me. Lately I've been struggling in the tournament scenes for Magic the Gathering. I think it's a lot due to running a YouTube channel as well as all the other hectic busy things in my life. I think has had a toll on the competitive level that I used to play at. Like, I used to have no problem doing extremely well in pre-releases, doing extremely well in FNMs, doing extremely well on everything that I played in, and these last ones have been very disappointing. Like, I went 3-5 at PTQ Fort Collins, Colorado, and then went 5-3 at PTQ Salt Lake. And so, you know, neither of those are terrible finishes. Maybe a lot of people think the 5-3 was a good finish, but I started 3-0 at PTQ Salt Lake. So being able to barely scrap out of 5-3 was incredibly frustrating when I started out 3-0. And I don't know, I was just a little bit down on myself, just second guessing my ability as a player. And yeah, just the overall confidence issue was really starting to get to me, because like I said, I was even struggling in casual and FNMs and things like that. So on to PTQ Vegas, I was a little bit, and then I tested out this deck, and thank you for everyone that helped me test out the Jund deck. I'm going to do a full tournament report for the Jund Dredge deck. I'm actually going to do it on the website. I'm going to write an entire article, and I might actually do a video on it too. I'll have to wait and see what I feel like the best outlet to actually showcasing that the PTQ Vegas is probably the website, because I can go over the details on the website of the matchups and whatnot. I'll probably run it down on this video as well. But anyway, thanks for everyone that helped me tune that deck. It ran perfectly, and I was a little bit frustrated though, because I dropped game number 1. I won game number 1, but match number 1, and then I proceeded to drop games 2 and games 3. And so I started off the tournament again 0-1. And in the tournament there was 121, so we were 7 rounds. So that means I had to win out to get into the top 8, as only X and 1s, only 6 and 1s would make you into the top 8. So a lot of pressure on me. Really hard after you lose your first round to do that. The good thing about losing first round is you're getting kind of paired in the lower bracket, and some of the matchups are a little bit easier, but at a PTQ, that isn't necessarily the case when all the players there are pretty high caliber players. I mean, they're expensive tournaments. They're $25 to buy in, and that's a lot more pricey than most Magic the Gathering tournaments, especially in like a standard format rather than a sealed or a draft format. The $25 is quite a bit of money. So that kind of weeds out the casual players, and it's more of the competitive players. We had a lot of people driving from Los Angeles area. Of course, I came down from Utah. There was a number. There's a lot of Utah players there as well. I noticed a lot of familiar faces, and yeah, so it was a fun experience. So anyway, going from 0-1 on to 6-1 to make the top 8 was a huge confidence boost. I got lucky on some of the matchups. I got very unlucky on some of the matchups. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, it was awesome. Huge confidence boost. I'm glad I made a top 8. Very disappointed that I lost in the top 8, especially due to, in my opinion, terrible draws. But it is what it is. And I got the playmat, so that's kind of cool. I'll show it to you here. So here's this beautiful top 8 playmat. Hope that everyone can see that. Yep, that way. Kind of cool playmat. And again, huge confidence boost. So anyway, I guess I'll just do it right here on the video log while I'm at it. I'll ramble. I like to ramble. So anyway, match number 1, I went up against RG Monsters. And first game, I chuck out a Lot of the Troll and Night Howler my Lot of the Troll. And my opponent is playing main boarded Destructive Reveries. And kills my Night Howler. I'm like, oh man, main boarded, this is how today's going to go. I'm going to play against a RG Monsters deck, and he's going to have a main board Reverie and destroy my Night Howler. And I was like on the verge of, doing the, I guess if you're not familiar with the deck, you'll have to watch some of the matchups. I'm extremely familiar with the deck now, and it is still working very good. But anyway, Destructive Revelie's my Night Howler. I'm like, all right, let's go a Lot of the Troll. And I think I was tapped out of mana, and then I think he was able to Amazing Mortars off my Lot of the Troll. Like, okay. Or no, he fought it with Domri. I think that was what he ended up doing. He was able to cast the Plukernos and fight it with Domri. I think it was my Night Howler was way high at that point. I think my Lot of the Troll was like an 8/7. And so I wasn't worried about Domri fighting anything or Amazing Mortars. So in the regular Jund Monsters list, I don't think there's any removal that could actually take care of an 8/7. But when he Destructive Reverie the Night Howler and then killed the Lot of the Troll, I was pretty far behind. And I think I drew in like a Shadowborn Demon, killed the Plukernos, and he had to deal with that. And lo and behold, he drops a Scavenging Ooze. He drops down a Scavenging Ooze main board and starts exiling my graveyard. But lo and behold, I drop another Night Howler, and I was able to Flesh Blood off his Scavenging Ooze before it got too big, and then I was able to draw into some Dredge cards and kill his. I was able to kill with the Shadowborn Demon. I was still able to kill his Domri. I think I still, even with Scavenging Ooze, exiling like 5 cards, I was still able to keep my Shadowborn Demon alive and swing in a Domri, kill his Domri. And so we were both into kind of top deck mode, and I top deck in like a Satyr Wayfinder and a Grizzly Salvage, filled back up my graveyard, was able to slap a Night Howler back on a guy, and he ran out of answers. But so I was very happy game 1 that I'm like, luck has not gone my way when I saw that main boarded Destructive Reverie and main boarded Scavenging Ooze, two problematic cards for my deck to deal with. And then my opponent in the next game got his first turn Elvish Mystic into second turn Domri, and then he pulled out a Corsair of Crewfix, and he was basically able to hit lands and creatures every turn. So the card advantage was just crazy high, and I was able to die to Stormbreath Dragons. I almost got him though, as I was dealing with everything quite well with the deck. So I lost that match, and then the next match, I had to deal with another early Ooze, which took away my removal. And again, it was a Xenagos. He got a 4th turn Xenagos, and even though I was able to deal with most of his threats, the Xenagos was not only was Xenagos pumping up every Gore Clan Rampager he was casting, but also it was enabling the Xenagos to attack, and it was too many things for me to deal with, and I lost that. So started out 1 and 2 in match number 1, going on to 0 and 1 overall. And my next matchup was against Orzhov Control, which is, in my opinion, my absolute best matchup. And I have one main boarded Lifebane Zombie, and I really feel bad for the guy because game number 1, I hit my 3rd turn Lifebane Zombie, exiling his there was a Blood Baron and an Obsidian, and I decided that I was going to take the Blood Baron. I thought Blood Baron was a bit more of a problem. And then he dropped a Desecration Demon, I dropped a Desecration Demon, and the board was kind of stalled for a bit until I was able to get out a lot of the Troll with a Night Howler on it. He was able to put out an Obsidian, and he had another Desecration Demon as well, but I kept tapping down the Desecration Demon with the Lot of the Troll, or with the sacking stuff like Satyr Wayfinders and whatnot. And I was able to put enough aggro on him, and I was actually pretty low. I was down to 4 life, but then he couldn't exile his Obsidian, as I had lethal on board, and then I was able to draw into the Gore Clan Rampager, and a Flesh Blood was in my hand, so I was able to attack in with the Lot of the Troll. He blocks with his Obsidian. I'm able to Gore Clan Rampager and trample through, and then Flesh Blood in for the win. So, and then the next match was very easy. Again, I think I drew into 2 Lifebane Zombies that game, and both of them hit, as well as he had kind of a slow hand with like an Elspeth in hand, I think he kept in a lot of removal that was pretty dead, and I just overwhelmed him. So 1-1 going into match number 3. And match number 3, I go against Mono Black. And Mono Black was quite interesting. No offense, he's my opponent. I kind of made fun of him because I throw Satyr Wayfinder out, and he's like, "What is this crap?" He's like, "What am I playing against?" And like, this deck's not crap. It's a great deck. So anyway, he first turn Thoughtseize me, which is like one of the most terrible cards against me. The only time that Thoughtseize is really good in Mono Black is when they first turn Thoughtseize, grab the removal for the Pack Rat, and then turn 2 Pack Rat. And 90% of the matchups I've lost now against Mono Black, and I'll get into that later. I did play some MTGO last night as well when I got home, and same thing. I was running the same problem. The only draw out of Mono Black that beats this Jund Dredge deck is the first turn Thoughtseize into second turn Mutavault Pack Rat, and you're just too far behind at that point. The Mutavault Pack Rat gets huge. I've since fixed that. I am now running a whopping 3 Pithing Needles in my sideboard. I am not losing to Pack Rat. I'm done losing to Pack Rat. If I have to lose to other things because I'm putting so much sideboard hate against Pack Rat, that's worth it, because anyway, we'll get into why. So anyway, he first turn Thoughtseize, and then second turn he has to Thoughtseize as well, and I first turn drop a Deathrite Shaman, and then I'm just keeping some mana on tap to exile Thoughtseizes. And then I think he casts like a Night Veil Spectre, and at that point, I was so far ahead, though. I think with him, he thought sees like a Jared and something else. So my graveyard count was already nice because he threw stuff in the graveyard. Then I was able to Satyr Wayfinder and then Nemesis Immortals on turn. I think I did Nemesis Immortals on turn 3. So it went Deathrite Shaman, Satyr Wayfinder, Nemesis Immortals, and then I was able to put him in really. He had to start blocking with his Night Veil Specters and stuff because I was able to Monstrous off the Nemesis Immortals. And of course, then he had to Hero's Downfall that, and then something else comes out. He had to Hero's Downfall that. So he was really far behind on that game. On game 1, game number 2, he got the Mutavault Pack Rat combo, and I died. Again, there's really not much you can do against Mutavault Pack Rat with my deck because it just doesn't run enough removal. And I do have Golgari Charms and I have Abrupt Decays, but I didn't see any. And then game number 3, again, he got a very fast draw with a nice little curve of 2, 3, 4. I think in that game he actually did get Pack Rats again, but he ended up having to go a different route as I was putting up too much pressure. So he went Night Veil Spectre into Desecration Demon into Grey Merchant, but with my deck it was, again, he had to play defensively. I think he was swinging in with the Grey Merchants or with the Night Veil Spectre, but he had to keep his Desecration Demon back for me to either sack or block. And he got to see the power of my deck being able to, if Jared is in the graveyard, so if you have excess mana, I do believe I did, Jared is in the graveyard, you can actually tap your Stomping Grounds and your Overgrown Tomb for the Gore Clan Rampager on the Lotless Troll. I had a Night Howler Lotless Troll, which is how I won most of my games. And then I was able to sacrifice the mountain in the swamp in the Blood Crypt in the Stomping Grounds that is used to pay for the Gore Clan Rampager. Jared out of the graveyard, discard it, and that puts another counter on Lotless Troll, and that 1 damage means a lot when you're going to be Flesh Blooding, because that's 2 damage. Yeah, is able to do that twice to put 2 extra counters, ditch the rest of my hand, and only keep a Flesh Blood in my hand. Even with the Desecration Demon blocking and the trample damage going over, I was able to do enough blood damage after, my Lotless Troll's at like 11, 10. That happens all the time. Hopefully we'll have some videos. Last night I thought I was recording, and the video did not record, of where my opponent was at 16, and for perfect damage, he had a Courser of Crewfix and a huge Scavenging Ooze that he'd been exiling from my graveyard, and he thought for sure that he'd won. And I was able to sacrifice 6 lands to Jared to pile on my Lotless Troll for 3 extra counters, and also keep up enough mana for Flesh Blood to do exactly with the trample damage. My Scavenging Ooze didn't end up doing any trample damage, or my Lotless Troll. I had 2 Lotless Trolls, but the other one was able to get in there for a little bit of trample damage, and then I was able to Flesh Blood for exactly the remaining 11 life that he was at. And so my opponent was very impressed with that play. But anyway, we'll get back to my matchup. So anyway, I ended up winning that matchup 2-1 against Mono Black. So now I was 2-1 in the standings and going into round 4, which I played against. I guess he's a well-known player in the California area. I cannot remember his name. He was playing RG Monsters, And both games I basically had the nuts. I had the flesh blood combo. He did apply a lot of pressure with Domries and Stormbreath Dragons, but he kept attacking with the Stormbreath Dragons, and I kept on the backswing swing for way more, so I just went for the race, and he just could not handle my aggro both games. Game number 2, he did get a little bit mana flooded. I would have been dead to a Gorkline Rampager, but he did not draw it. And I mean, he even had a nice draw with Corsair of Krufix and Prophet, and Domri, but it was just too little to actually deal with my Flesh Blood Gorkline Rampager Lalatrol. I actually like the RG Monsters matchup a lot. Again, the only really draws that you lose to against RG Monsters is when they get like the crazy Corsair Domri on like turn 2 and turn 3. So Elvish Mystic into Corsair, find a land off the top, then play Domri the next turn, and then they just make sure, like play a Scryland to make sure a creature is on top, or if a land is on top, they can play it with Corsair of Krufix and get card advantage that way. And the 2 games that I lost to RG Monsters, the first one, Xenagos was the main problem. I couldn't deal with an early Xenagos. This guy, I don't know if he was playing Xenagos. I did not see it if he did, but I didn't have to deal with that, and it was a pretty easy matchup. Again, ended up winning that 2-0, going on to round number 5, which I went up against another Orzhov Devotion deck, Orzhov Control, which again I lost one of the games to a turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Mutavault Packrat. So I was getting sick of that already, where that is the draw that actually beats me. And then the following 2 games, so Lifebane Zombies, they hit both times, and it was too much for him to come back with Lifebane Zombie. They usually have to waste a remove on Lifebane Zombie, like a Bile Blight, and you also get to, I think he on one of his games actually put out a pack rat and attacked in with it, and I blocked with Lifebane Zombie. So Lifebane Zombie actually got rid of a Blood Baron and a pack rat. So again, his deck was, the removal is very, very terrible versus my deck, like Bile Blights. The Thoughtseizes aren't very good against the deck unless you can first turn them to set up a pack rat. So other than that, it's a pretty easy matchup in both games. That's what ended up happening. I was able to, I think one of the games versus him, I was able to Flesh Blood for the win. I had 7 mana and is able to flesh and blood fused. So Flesh Blood and Nemesis of Mortals onto my Lotlatrol. So that's 5 counters right there, and then blood him. And then I was able to discard everything else out of my hand and whatnot, and then swing in for the win. So Lotlatrol is very good against mono black because it regenerates. Bile Blight a lot of time isn't reliable removal, as I can get it above 4 toughness. So anyway, then I was now 4-1 going into round number 6, and I played against Rakdos Aggro, which is a terrible matchup, but I drew on fire again. I kept 2 land hands both games with Lotlatrol, Night Howler, and Gorkland Rampager, and drew into the Flesh Blood. And even with his incredible aggro, I was able to just do that turn 5 kill. And I was probably dead both games. Because they go like first turn Rakdos Cackler, second turn into like a Spike Jester, third turn into Herald of Torment, and it's very aggressive. But against him, I was able to like first turn Deathrite Shaman, and that was able to start exiling stuff to either gain life or to do damage to him. Second turn Satyr Wayfinder, he decided to attack into the Spike Jester and his Cackler, and I was able to block the Spike Jester with the Satyr Wayfinder. And then third turn, I put a Lotlatrol with regenerate mana up, and that was really making his like Cackler pretty babby. Herald Torment hit me a couple times, also ticked him a couple times, and then I was able just to start throwing stuff in the graveyard with a Lotlatrol, Gorkline Rampager, Flesh Blood, and that was basically both games were like that. I think game number 2 he got stuck on 4 lands and had 2 Stormbreath Dragons in his hand, but I don't really know if that would have helped or not, because he was still playing stuff every turn. And he was still using like removal and stuff that turn. And if he wouldn't have been using removal, if he was using the dragons, I could always go for that 1-turn kill with the Flesh Blood Lotlatrol. Anyway, so end up winning that 2-0. Pretty lucky there, because I think that aggro is one of my matchups is tough. Then I go on to the next round into match number 7. So I'm on 5-1 going into the 7th round, and I go up against a Boros Devotion deck, and that is a tough matchup for me because they just usually I can't interact with them at the very first, and then they spit out all their devotion cards. The key to taking out Boros devotion is to take down their devotion. So game number 1, he had the God draw. He went turn 2, Ash Zealot, turn 3, Shrine of Nyx, and Burning Emissary into, that'd be, at 4 extra mana into, I believe, a Hammer of Perforos. And then the next turn he drops a Fanatic Amogus and swings in with everything. And it was way too much damage from, that would be 7 damage from Fanatic Amogus and the haste from the Fanatic Amogus. And he was also able to, I believe, sacrifice a land for his hammer and swing in. So I miserably lost that matchup. Game number 2, we both mulled to 6, which is heavily in my favor because my deck mulls like a champ. Boros Devotion does not mull very well. So I was able to first turn Deathrite Shaman into... No, I took out the Deathrite Shamans. He put in a ton of removal, which I think was the mistake. So he ended up having an Anger of Gods to kill a Lot Literal and I believe a Deathrite Shaman, yeah, but he also had to kill an Ash Zealot. And yeah, I think he had to kill... It was a 2-for-2 plus his thing because, yeah, I don't know why he decided. Maybe he did kill 3 of my guys off the board. Maybe there's like a Satyr Wayfinder, but it definitely wasn't worth it. He was able to do that, Anger of Gods, but I was able to ditch enough cards for my Lot Literal to survive the Anger of Gods. So yes, it did get a ton of cards out of my hand, but he ended up having to get rid of 2 of my guys. Deathrite Shaman and Satyr Wayfinder were exiled, which does hurt my deck, and then 2 of his cards were exiled. So it was pretty even. He had to using the cards for the Anger of Gods. And then same thing with Amizian Mortars. He had Amizian Mortars that ended up taking out something. But again, my Lot Literal that was now pretty decently high. And him not actually throwing out. That's the catch-22 of Boros Devotion, though, is if you bring in the removal, it's not that great because you're not advancing your own board. And so here he was with nothing but a hammer on board, and here I was with a Lot Literal that he had to answer and was really hard. I threw out a Nemesis of Mortals. He had to Chain to Rock that. He ended up Chain to Rocking my Lot Literal, but it had a Night Howler on it, so the Night Howler fell off, and I think that's what ended up getting him was just the subsequent attacks with Night Howlers. So, I mean, he kept a hand with, I believe, an Anger of Gods, Chain of the Rocks, Amizian Mortars. No way to really progress his board, no way to really get a ton of devotion to really make his shrines worthwhile, and I was able just to, with my value creatures, to eventually overrun him. Game number 3 was a Nail Biter. He drew a fairly amount of lands for that. I think he did draw 6 lands. He had a Stormbrick Dragon out. I had to use some early removal on Boros Reckoner. He did make a play mistake. I attacked him with my Nemesis of Mortals. I got off a turn 3 Nemesis of Mortals. Again, you go first turn land, second turn Satyr Wayfinder. You find 3, and this is the God draw, of course. You find 3 creatures you cannot grab and a land. The 3 creatures go in the graveyard. Turn 3, you drop the land. You play Nemesis of Mortals. So you had a Boros Reckoner, and I actually Grizzly Salvaged the next turn. Put 4 more cards, I believe, in my graveyard. Creature in my graveyard, grabbed a land, dropped the land, attacked in, and he blocked. And I went, okay, where did the 5 damage go? And he said, to the Nemesis Immortals. And I said, okay, in response, I monstrous it and make it a 10. And it's pretty nutty on turn 5. I can monstrous a Nemesis Immortals. And then, so he was staring down a 10-10, which is really, really, really hard for a Boros deck to deal with. And eventually, like, he kept putting out stuff, though. I mean, my hand was pretty much gone. His hand was pretty much gone. He did top into some Stormbrass. He did have a Hammer Perforos out, and he did do some damage with a Fanatic of Mogus. And one of the play moves that someone said later on that he might not have agreed with is he attacked in early. This was earlier. He had a Hammer and a Fanatic of Mogus and a Burning Tree. And I decided to trade a 2-1 Troll with the Burning Tree and not the Fanatic and take 4 damage. And I was asked why later, and I'm still under the belief that you take down the Devotion of Boros. If you take down the Devotion of Boros Devotion, a lot of times they can't go crazy with their shrine. And this was early. He didn't even have a shrine out, but he did have the 4 lands, and I didn't want him just to drop a shrine and have 4 Devotion on board. I'd rather have him have 3 by killing the Burning Emissary. And I did have another Lot Literal in my hand, so I wasn't too worried about taking the damage. And anyway, what ended up happening is I was able to stabilize. I believe it was at 4 life, and so all he needed to do and he was sacking lands each turn for the Hammer Perforos, and usually getting in for like 2 or 3. But I was able to. Or he's able to get into 4 most turns because the Fanatic of Mogus was still alive and is able to keep killing the 3/3s with my. I believe I had like a 4/4 Night Howler that was able to keep killing the 3/3s. And then I was able to draw into another Night Howler and a Flesh Blood. Or I think it was just my Night Howler that was out, and was able to exile a big creature, the Nemesis Immortals, onto my Night Howler with a Flesh Blood with the 7 mana, put it up to a lethal damage and swing in. So pretty cool. End up barely winning that matchup to go into the top 8. In the top 8, game number 1, up against out of the top 8, we had an Esper Control, a black-white aggro, a Bant Control, a Jund Monsters, my deck, the Jund Dredge, and Mono Black. And I believe I can't remember what the other 8th deck was, but I got up against my best matchup was Mono Black, so I was feeling pretty awesome. And Mono Black, he first turn Thought Seizes, and he doesn't know what to take. He takes a Jared. I was so happy he took the Jared. I'm like, yes, there's the card, the best card in the world. No, was it Jared? Either that or a Deathrite Shaman he took. I'm like, neither one of those I could care about in my hand. And he kept the Grizzly Salvage. He kept the Satyr Wayfinder. And so I was able just to dredge this amazing dredge hand, draw into the Flesh Blood. And even though he was able to like get out a quick turn 4 Desecration Demon, he was toast to that draw because I threw so much in the graveyard. My Trolls and Night Howler was huge and was able to Flesh Blood for the win. And so I was feeling so great, 1-0. Game number 2, I mulled. No land hand, had to mull into a 5-land hand with an Underworld Cerberus. Hindsight, maybe should have kept that. I had to mull though down to 5 to a 1-land forest Satyr Wayfinder, and he turned 1 Thought Seize me, took the Satyr Wayfinder, and I did not draw a land until my 3rd draw, and he overwhelmed me with creatures. I think he did Pack Rat, Nightveil Spectre, Desecration Demon, and it was too hard for me to win that. So not even a game. That was just a variance game. That I call those games losing to the mulligan, like mulliganing the win away, or mulligan to loss. Very disappointed at that point, but it is what it is. That's Magic. Again, you have to roll with that. And then, so going into game number 3, he mulls to 6. I think he was specifically mulling to a Pack Rat. I did bring in a ton of Pack Rat. Hey, did not see it in my opening hand. He first turn Thought Seizes me, gets rid of my Grizzly Salvage, because Grizzly Salvage really is my engine to putting a lot of stuff in the graveyard. And then he goes second turn, Mutavault, Pack Rat. And that draw is so incredibly hard for my deck to beat that I don't know. It's just I can't beat it now. That's why I've messed with the sideboard now to put Pithing Needles in the sideboard, and hopefully I can actually beat that draw because it is just ridiculous. So turn 2 Pack Rat, turn 3 he drops another Mutavault and casts a natural Pack Rat. Just casts a Pack Rat. So his Pack Rat's a 2/2. He's got a Mutavault he can activate. So he makes it a 3/3, swings in for 3. And I've got like a Satyr Wayfinder at this point that I have to chump block. Turn number 3, he drops a Mountain. And again, he just goes for the Pack Rat kill, discards a useless card in his hand, and activates his Mutavault. And I take 6 at this point. Or no, I take 8 at this point. And I have a lot of higher casting cost stuff. I do believe that I cast some stuff, but he was able to, I guess, a Gloricon Rampager to block next turn, but he was able to Bile Blight it when I blocked his Nightveil, or his rat, and then he made a 1/1, and then the rat was able to kill it, and I was able to deal with another rat, I believe with like an Abrupt Decay or something. So he's down to 1 rat, and he kept his 2 lands, two black lands and 2 Mutavaults, and then I was able to bring out a Domri. I do believe that I did end up answering his rats. I killed all his rats, but I was down to like no cards in a Domri, and he was able to kill me off those 2 Mutavaults, and it was pretty disappointing. Lost 1 and 2 and eliminated from the PTQ. The finals was between a Esper Control and a Bant Control, and the Esper ended up winning it. So Esper Control took down this PTQ of 121. Pretty small PTQ, but 121 is not bad. A year ago, that would have been huge, but the way PTQs have been and the way Magic has been growing, 121 is probably on the low end. Apparently, there are some tournaments, and it was game day, so apparently there was a lot of tournaments elsewhere in in the Vegas area and in the Southern California area. So anyway, I'm on to a half an hour. This is way long for the rambling. I guess that is just a tournament report I did. Thanks a lot for everyone's support and encouragement. It was, again, great confident booster to make a top 8. And now hopefully I continue to improve and actually can win one of these PTQs. And yeah, very disappointed I don't make this Pro Tour, but eventually hopefully we'll get there. Again, I'm going to be trying to do a ton of updates for the Rogue Deck Builder. This is at 30 minutes. I'll do a separate video if I feel like it for about updates for Rogue Deck Builder. Again, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.